I'd like to get this meeting started. Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to your Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee. I am joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Buscaino, Rue, and O'Farrell, and I believe Ms. Martinez is on her way. At some point, I'm going to move that we move items 4, 8, 9, 11, 12, 14, and 15 on consent. I'm also going to like to hold 7, 10, and 13 for amendments and continue item 16. I'm not going to do any of that quite yet because we have a number of multiple public comment speakers, and I want to get to that, but I wanted to telegraph my intention on those motions. So let's get started with multiple public comment cards. Not synced up. We'll start with Ms. Ramirez. You have 2 minutes on the items in front of us, and then we'll have 1 minute on general public comment.
Thank you very much. Since I live on the streets, everything that I have here is very important to me. Number one, pretty soon, there won't be any forests. With a fucking fake Jew, George Soros, and his open border policy, we will build homes in these beautiful national forests because of overpopulation. Number two, let's be clear. There are no protected tree ordinances, and nor are they enforced in all the city or the county. They are decayed, rotted, and bug termite infested. Number four, first, instead of planting beautiful trees, why don't you put toilets and bathrooms and showers for the 75,000 homeless people in the city and the county who urinate caca all over the trees? Number five, quit funding bogus programs. There is no Project Sanitary Stations from the LAPD. What we have is caca, urine, vomit, burnt vehicles, old rotted furniture all over our stinky, unsafe, uninhabitable city and the county, thanks to the fucking Democrats. God bless the LAPD, whom I love very much. Number six, refund the taxpayers. This is a bogus program. Number seven, use the grant money wisely and prudently. City of Los Angeles, first stop the fraud, waste, and abuse. And the block grant improvements, we need to use it for removing crimes. First, public safety must be enforced to build healthy, safe, and tangible communities. Number nine, before you form the governance committees, stabilize and refortify all bridges, highways, tunnels, freeways, and the crumbling, decaying infrastructure. And number 10, this corrupted fucking Mayor Eric Garcetti should not accept any grant or money, but get the royal boot out and recall him for having 80% of all youths in gangs, vandalizing, graffitiing, and committing crimes against humanity, and rewarding all the goddamn fucking criminals in Los Angeles. And number 13,
Yeah,
oh well.
That's time.
And number, I get my free comments. Thank you.
1
Ladies
minute.
and gentlemen, I am homeless by design. And La Placita, it's a gang-infested environment. La Placita, the church, and the Plaza Cultural y Artes, and they are involved in crimes and drugs. They'll turn the other way. There's a lot of theft, drugs, and contraband coming into La Placita, Skid Row, Chinatown, Little Tokyo, East LA, and Glendale, and Burbank, and Pasadena. And you've got your niggers, your gangbangers, your wetbacks, all these chango Latinos, and your white trash junkies. We have to put an end. We have to put chokehold these goddamn cartels and drug dealers and pimps who are destroying our communities. Our young youths, our kids are the future of America, and the elderly senior citizens who are now being targeted in every area of their existence. We have to put an end to crimes. There is no fucking public safety on the streets. I live on the streets in LA. I see it. God bless LAPD who bust their asses every day. God bless America and Donald Trump.
Thank you. Next we have Corey, no last name, K-O-R-I. It's Corey here, K-O-R-I-E. Let the record reflect, Corey did not appear. Next we have Mr. Herman with some epithets, but he apparently has been kicked out. Was kicked out this morning, so he's not here, but for the record, Mr. Herman, calling him, he's not here. Next, Mr. Previn. It's Mr. Previn here. Welcome. Be followed by Mr. Sachs.
Thank you. Oh, I'll just leave that alone. Yeah. Thank you, sir. It's Eric Previn from Studio City. And I speak on about item number 15 for a moment, which is in our district. It's a vacation of about 3,300 square feet of property right on Ventura Boulevard, just a little bit, hope I get this right, west of Whitsett. And it's a strip of land which is attached to a big area surrounded in yellow that is some kind of a mixed-use development, I assume. But here's the thing, that is at a location, and they've paid their $15,000 and have asked for a vacation of that property. But there's a plan at the Weddington Golf and Tennis that Harvard Westlake recently acquired to do a lot of things that's going to create strain on the, I'll call it a choke point of Whitsett and Ventura, where perversely and bizarrely, we recently increased the speed limit where all these kids are possibly going to be 240 miles an hour. But my point is this something that our community knows anything about? Because I ordinarily poke my nose into these things. I noticed that it was a larger request for vacation in May. Maybe it's been right-sized, but if there's any way to put a pin in this and allow our community to understand what is the nature of the development that's going to be there so that we can evaluate that. I mean, everybody understands there's good development and, you know, this may be that, but it certainly strains the eyes a little bit to imagine a big development with parking right next to this, which we don't even know about, as I think Harvard Westlake is getting into an EIR. Councilmember Krikorian made that announcement at our recent meeting. Anyway, just to say for the trees, because I know you got a lot of tree people here, thank you for taking a lead in protecting our canopy. And I would like just to say, you know, no thank you to approving what happened at Sportsman's Lodge or Landing or whatever they want to call it, because it is a harsh, you walk by and your heart kind of winces at the absence of so many trees that they've just removed. Now, high-end retail has its place, but not where the trees are. And I'll say the same thing about Weddington. For folks who care about trees, tune into that, because they should not be taking down those trees. It's the lungs of our community. Thank you.
Arnold Sachs, followed by Mike Greenspan.
Yes, thank you, Arnold Sachs. Three items here. The seismic highway bridge funding. I didn't know that the city was investing in so much highway bridge funding. I know that they're investing in bridge housing, but highways? What highways are we building in the city that would necessitate bridge funding? Item 14 refers to the Hollywood Walkability Program, so I was wondering if that's for hookahs or for the street vendors that populate the sidewalks in Hollywood so that they can raise money for the hookahs. And if you have a walkability program in Hollywood, why don't you have a walkability program throughout the city of Los Angeles where you heard vendors for the businesses talk about people that are putting their illegal businesses on the streets. And then number 13 refers to the tunnels at Hoover, Vermont, and Figueroa. What happens to the homeless people that are living in those tunnels? Are they also, can you check to see if they're enrolled in the LA Care program, the county's health care program from the Affordable Care Act that was passed in 2008? It would really be helpful. Maybe you could get the mayor and Mark Ridley Thomas to go out there and give them, enroll them in the program. I remember they did a photo op of a homeless encampment. Maybe it was at the tunnels. That would be really helpful for both of them to be able to spend some of that money that's coming to the county from the Affordable Care Act, because nobody knows where that's going. And, you know, it's free money. They get paid for their insurance premiums. It's like having a blank check and somebody's cashing it, but we're not going to go into that. Anyway, I think I'll do my public comment now. So we're in the Board of Public Works room, and I thought there would be different rules in the Board of Public Works room from the City Council. That's what I'm told when I come to Board of Public Works hearings. That being said, there's a part in this agenda that says if you challenge the committee's action in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised in a public hearing described in this notice. But if you only get 2 minutes, it's very difficult to raise a lot of questions about the issues when you have 15, 16, 17 items on your agenda? What is the city council, how did the city council manage to do that to eliminate public input on such a well-run city? I mean, unfortunately, some people don't see it that way. They think the city is somewhat going off the cliff without who knows who's driving. Well, we know who's kind of driving it, but they're blind as bats. But it would be really helpful if we had an opportunity to question some of these decisions that are made that affect, I don't know, 2 million people.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Greenspan, followed by Hector.
Mike Greenspan, a 10-2 Florida Gator, UCLA, I still don't. Another waste of our taxpayer dollars. Now, let's go to the first thing, planting trees. I've seen them plant trees in North Hollywood. Yes, our Civilian Conservation Corps, whatever we call them these days, they're, nice, idealistic young people planting trees. I hope somebody's thinking about what happens when these trees grow and mature and have big roots and bust up our sidewalks. I hope you guys are going to be paying for the sidewalks that get busted up down the road, because that's what's going to happen. Just look at where they've got trees already, mature trees. And what do we have? Broken sidewalks. So that's great. Now, number two, something about the relative to strengthening protected tree ordinance. Now, I see Mr. Koretz's part of it, and I always wonder, will that be those money trees that he believes money grows on? Because the way he spends money, he thinks it grows on trees. I've been saying that for years. It doesn't. Okay, we have something about a temporary closure, and I always get a little bit upset about that because that is item 12. Why don't we just call it permanent, Permanent. There's nothing wrong with a permanent closure. Just label it as such. At least we're being more honest on the other item, 13, with 3 closures and that they need it. Well, obviously, there's crime that happens. Who knows what goes on? I'm sure they're shooting up dope, and who knows what else goes on, sex acts or whatever. So it's time. And now with number 15, vacation over there. I live in Council District 2. Vacation means, the way John Walsh would describe it, somebody's given some money, and that's what they're getting in return. All right, let me go back to the thing about planting trees, because we're going to be here years from now talking about, well, what are we going to do with the sidewalks? Didn't we go through that a couple years ago? And we figured, well, you're the homeowner with that sidewalk in front of your house, you're responsible. No, folks, I believe the city is responsible. They planted the trees, they put the sidewalks in, the trees got big, they got mature, the roots just busted up everything as it's seeking to go for some kind of water pipe in a house, and the root takes off, and of course it just will destroy everything in its path. So we really need to think about that. Maybe there's a way you could dig the tree a little deeper or something, maybe put a few less trees, because when we bust up the sidewalks, you're going to be coming out with your hat in your hand, money, money, money. Now pay for the sidewalks. Well, you're the people that messed it up in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, someone by the name of Hector signed up, no last name. Is there a Hector? Let the record reflect. Hector's not here. Joanne D'Antonio signed up for multiple items. Welcome, Joanne.
I'm here for item 2 with the CIS, but actually I'm going to be quite brief about that one. And then I have a brief comment on item 3 and a little bit longer comment on 4. I am the CFAC representative, one of them for CD2. I served on the working group for DUDAC. And I chair the Trees Committee for the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. On item 2, I just want to call to your attention that there have been CISs filed from 3 different neighborhood councils that ask for additional participation when that meeting convenes. The president of Rampart Village Neighborhood Council is on the Trees Committee for the neighborhood councils. Bel Air Beverly Crest asked to be part of it, and we asked for the Trees Committee to be part of that group when it convenes. And my neighborhood council filed a CIS to that effect. So we just want to remind you when you pass that and the group convenes that community members need to have some input. For item 2, I just want to say that it's been my observation that the protected tree ordinance is being used to bypass CEQA, and many times when it's exempt from CEQA, the protected trees are just removed. And I think we just need to look at how much are we charging to remove these valuable trees, and is it really necessary in every situation, and what is the overall picture of what we're doing just environmentally by removing so many of these native trees. Then I want to speak about 4, which I know is part of your consent. But I would like to, I've read the report, and I would like to...
That's your time, so finish your sentence, and then that's your time.
Well, I get extra time because of the CIS.
You signed up as multiple comment cards,
Yes,
so you
I
could
did.
sign it.
I signed
Which
up
item
for-
did you have a CIS on?
CIS was on 2. And
Well, for item 2, you could get additional time, but it doesn't give you the right to talk about every item.
No, but I get a little extra time.
The way the process works, I have to be fair, is when you file a CIS on an item, you can speak on that item if you filed one for an
Right, but I don't
addition-
want that
in
deducted
addition-
from
I don't
my
want to have back and forth.
Yeah.
You can speak on that item for an additional minute in this committee. That's how that works. You spoke on item 2 for almost 2 minutes. But I'll tell you what, we'll give you have a minute of general public comment, so we'll let you finish your thoughts on your minute of general public
Okay.
comment.
So the report for item 4, because CFAC supported the in lieu fee, I think that they should be consulted on what is going on, because I see it's changed that the trees do not have to be planted in the same 1-mile radius that was originally stated, and we'd like to know why on the public record, and because redistribution has effect on wildlife, and we have programs in communities that have fewer trees that sanitation and KYCC and so forth are doing. So we just don't want to see a diminished canopy in the areas. I see every tree removal report, and there are many driveways where trees are being removed within lieu fees, and those communities are not getting the replant in those communities. So I just wanted to bring that to attention. I think if you send the report to CFAC for comment, it would be good.
Appreciate that, and I think you'll find this committee shares your sentiment on a lot of these tree issues. So that concludes the multiple speaker items. So colleagues, I'd like to move items 4, 8, 9, 11, 12, not 14, because we have a couple of comments specifically on that, which we'll get to right away, and 15 on consent. So 4, 8, 9, 11, 12, 15, seeing no objection, that will be the order. We'll then take up item 14, and we'll hear the public comment cards on item 14. Could you read item 14 into the record, please?
Item number 14 is a motion from Council Members Price and O'Farrell. Also, no, not this one. 14, sorry. 14. This is a report from the Board of Public Works, and a CAO report has been uploaded and distributed relative to the monetary donation in support of the Hollywood Walkability Enforcement Program and 5 parking spots at the Los Angeles Department of Transportation parking facility located at 6801 Hollywood Boulevard.
Okay, we have 2 public comment cards. Chris Larson, followed by Stephen Gentry. This is number 14.
Hi, good afternoon.
One
My name
minute
is
each.
Chris Larson, and I serve as the CEO of the Hollywood BID. Our business improvement district includes the Tourism District Overlay Zone, or TDOZ, which is an additional assessment zone. The TDOZ includes 25 parcels around the famed Hollywood and Highland intersection. Earlier this year, we facilitated a priorities exercise with the 25 TDOZ property owners. Given the growing proliferation of bulky items, tour bus salesmen, unpermitted signs, and food and beverage and merchandise carts, the sidewalks had become nearly unpassable and unsafe. It was no surprise that their number one priority was reducing the number of pedestrian obstructions. Given this priority, the TDOZ and the Hollywood Bid are proud to financially support the Hollywood Walkability Program. This desire for safe sidewalks was also codified into our 5-year strategic plan under Goal 2 Objectives E and G. We are a natural partner with the City of LA on this initiative, which in only a few short months has already reduced the number of sidewalk obstructions by more than 70%. In short, this is a program that works. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Gentry next.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Steve Gentry, and I'm here representing DJM Capital, which is the ownership of Hollywood and Highland. And we just wanted to say a few things about the walkability program along Hollywood and Highland. The program thus far has been great for us.
Hold this time. Could you push the mic up so we can hear you?
How's that?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, for us, the program's been great. In front of the area where Hollywood and Highland sits, we've noticed tremendous strides in the way the property looks. The streets are clear. There's been less traffic outside the area. The incidents have gone down. The ownership group is planning to make significant investments to improve the Hollywood and Highland Center, and we are just happy with everything that's taken place so far. I'd also like to thank Councilman O'Farrell, BSS, and Los Angeles Police Department for your partnership and your assistance with everything that you guys have done.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, unless there is an objection or additional comments or questions, I'm going to recommend that we adopt the CAO and the Board of Public Works reports. Seeing no objection, that will be the order. That takes us through item 14. And now we'll go back to the top of the agenda to item number 1. Mr. Espinosa, if you could read that into the record.
Item number 1 is a verbal report from the City Forest Officer relative to oversight of the city's urban forest.
And I'd like to invite Rachel Malarick to the podium. Ms. Malarick, you have already had a tremendous career preserving and protecting our urban forest. We're just going to ask you to, this is your first official time now coming before us as our Chief Lorax. And if you could share some information about your background and your plans moving forward, the City Forest Office.
Thank you so much for having me, Chair Blumenfield, committee members. I'm thrilled to be here. And as a stakeholder, when this position was created, I was elated and now find myself in the role and am very excited to bring my experience and expertise to the city in this position. I have been working in urban forestry in the city of Los Angeles for over 12 years, both at Tree People and then at Koreatown Youth and Community Center, as well as participating with Community Forestry Advisory Committee and Street Tree Seminar, which is our local chapter of the California Urban Forest Council. I'm a certified arborist and I'm tree risk assessor qualified also. So I have lots of time. In my time at Tree People, I got to work in so many different neighborhoods within the city, first as a regional manager and then as director of forestry, getting to know different corners of the city, working on projects with community groups, getting to hear about their passion for the urban forest and what they wanted to see in their neighborhoods. I also, in my time at Koreatown Youth and Community Center, got a chance to really work on how we develop community level plans for our urban forest. And so now I'm really thrilled to take that experience and look at our city as a whole. So I wanted to share a little bit about where we are right now and start by saying thank you so much for your leadership and support for the reinvestment in our urban forest in the past 2 budget cycles and even in the continued action we see this week. It is just a really exciting time for trees in the city of LA. So a little bit about where we are. Last year, almost to date, there was a release of the First Step report, First Step Towards a Urban Forestry Management Plan, which was done by City Plants with support from the consultant Dudek. That was a culmination of a 10-month stakeholder process to give us a needs assessment. Where are we right now? Where do we need to be in order to have an urban forest management plan for the city? We also have a very recently completed canopy assessment through LIDAR data that was completed by Tree People in March. Those two pieces of information are giving me tremendous point to start from. We have this needs assessment done by our stakeholders, which included city departments, council offices, and community groups, and then we have this canopy data. Those two things are going to be helping me to build the strategic plan for my office moving forward and move us towards an urban forestry management plan, which is the ultimate goal. We know that trees are the one piece of our infrastructure that increase in value over time and can provide tremendous benefit to all of our residents, but really need to be managed holistically across the city and make sure that we're incorporating other city goals like biodiversity and sustainability in those efforts. We already have tremendous staff that know trees and work with trees. We're reinvesting in the amount of staff that are on those teams. My goal is to look across departments and make sure that our best practices and policies really are in line with a common vision for the city. I'll just add in kind of summary, I'll ask for your patience. Obviously, this position actually was identified as a need in the mid-90s, and I know that we have had tremendous challenges to the urban forest in the past decade. Again, we are in a great place right now, but it's going to take me some time to work with all of our different departments to make sure that systems and policies are really all lined up. I really look forward to communicating with you and your offices as we tackle various issues to make sure that we're reflecting constituent concerns and needs in the new policies that we develop or the ways that we revise policies. And additionally, I just last week was able to submit a grant proposal for consultant support for the urban forestry management plan. And so when that comes to council, I would look for your support in the board report for that. We're a ways from that, but when it comes, please thumbs up. And any questions?
Great. Well, you mentioned the urban forestry management plan, which is something we're all very focused on and is going to be great. When do we expect it to be completed, and how do we ensure that the progress continues?
Yes, definitely. So first thing, we have to complete the inventory before I can finalize the plan. Obviously, I've just begun, but the inventory, I believe, is slated to be completed in 2021, and so that data is integral to us making a plan for species selection, and not that we won't be working on those things concurrently, but the data on what we have and what we need to manage it is very important. So I will not be able to finish before that inventory is complete and we're able to do an analysis based on that inventory. Additionally, it's going to be a matter of resources. So currently, I am a one-person office, and I am thrilled to push forward as much as I can in the time I have, but when staffing requests come around in this budget cycle, any support there would also be appreciated, as well as I have a line item in there for consultants for the UFMP. Again, already looking to bring in resources through grants that will hopefully allow us to complete that more quickly and have more resources for that, but that's where we are at this point.
I don't want to nail you down too much, but any ballpark or best case, worst case timing that we can?
Obviously, in the Green New Deal, the mayor laid out a goal by 2025. The grant that I applied for, which I think we could absolutely, if funded, complete in the timeframe, that ends in March of 2024, but I would hope much sooner than that. So that would be the absolute worst case scenario. I would assume in spring of 2024, but I'm hoping much sooner.
Great. And you mentioned engaging the public, which is really important in this as well. And so how do you plan on engaging the public in terms of the tree planting and maintenance and preservation efforts? What are you envisioning for that?
So on the tree planting side, we're so fortunate to have a number of nonprofits. I just came back from the national conference where a bunch of the nonprofit groups and state and municipal foresters get together. And LA is the only city that has so many nonprofit groups and partners that are working on tree planting and community engagement. So I will be continuing. I'm currently an advisor to the City Plants nonprofit. I'll be working with them and our other partners to make sure that we're utilizing their skill sets to help us engage the public, as well as making sure that when we have tree planting and care activities, that there is really great authentic community engagement happening in those neighborhoods, as well as hearing back from you all when we are prioritizing things, much as we did through the guaranteed tree fee meetings in advance of today's hearing.
Great. And sort of a general question, we always have this balance with maintaining our trees and repairing our sidewalks. Any insights into how we achieve that important balance?
Well, obviously we are in a point where we're having to deal with sidewalks that are already in disrepair and have a plan for moving forward with that. I'll tell you what I tell community members who are nervous about trees. It's absolutely about appropriate species selection, and I know that the trees that we're planting now in those locations are ones that will not cause sidewalk damage in the future. We're being very careful about what we select to plant now. And one of the things that I'm really interested in doing over the coming months, particularly as I continue to develop my relationship with Department of City Planning, who I didn't work as much with on the nonprofit side of this work, is trying to understand how we can create more spaces for large trees. It costs the same amount to plant a coast live oak, which grows to be a very large tree, as it does a western redbud, which is always going to be 20 feet tall at most. The plant and maintain them, same cost, and one gives us tremendously more benefits, but we have to have space where that tree is not going to lift a sidewalk. And right now, the main place we'll find that kind of a tree is in a park. But how do we look at our streetscape and public right-of-way, or even our adjacent private property front yards, to make sure that we have large trees in place for the city without having compromise to sidewalks?
Colleagues, any questions or comments for our forester? No? And I know you're going to be on hand for the next couple of items. Adele, or if he's here, you may want to say a few words. Our Streets LA general manager may want to add a few things. He's, as we know, does the day-to-day operations for UFD and falls under their domain.
It's great. Good afternoon, Adele Hashkali, general manager of Streets LA. I want to first of all say how blessed we are to have Rachel Melridge be our chief forest officer. I was impressed with her skills when we did the interviews. I knew her before, and one thing I know about her is she has a passion for working with everyone and with people, but also, most importantly, respecting and working with the staff that we have in Streets LA. And that was very important. We have great people. I know Tim Tyson and his team has done a great job. That relationship between them is happening and it's working. They meet every Friday. They plan, they work together, and that's the synergy of what you asked us to do. I recall back somewhere around October of last year, the first issue I think I dealt with, besides many other ones, is the Cherokee issue, as the issue between the conflict between sidewalks and trees, and how we really moved since then to a relationship of collaboration with the community. We have a new culture of valuing every tree before we remove it, but also if we have to remove it, let's make sure we plant something in where it's needed. That relationship, the policies and looking for ideas, has evolved since then for last year. We've done amazing amount of work. We had a great first tree summit, and we call it in LA, and we're planning on the second tree summit, and that was, I think the first one was a healing summit, where we actually came back together and worked together on how we support the advocates, the environmental groups, the scientists, and our staff, and how we move forward. Next year is going to be about implementation and what we're working on, what we've done. But today I want to say thank you to your committee, to the chair, and to the members of the committee, but the council and mayor for supporting us in the funding for adding additional trimming crews, watering crews to help us get the job done and get us the funding for the inventory. You laid the work for us and to allow us to do what we need to do. So I want to thank you publicly, and I want to thank council and the mayor for their support. But I want to tell you, I'm very excited about having Rachel with us. It's a partnership that we take with pride, that we're working together. But I want to also ask the assistant GM, who really gets a lot of stuff done, Greg Spots, to give you an update of what we've done in a brief seconds on the accomplishments. We've done some great things.
Mr. Spots.
Thank you, Adele. Greg Spots, Assistant Director and Chief Sustainability Officer, and I'm proud to oversee several divisions, including the Urban Forest Division. Just a couple of milestones from 2019. It's really been the most exciting year that I've seen for the urban forest in a decade. There's alignment, there's drive, and there's resources. When you bring those three things together, you can really accomplish a lot. We've had 5 tree trimming crews working every week for the entire 2019. We will complete approximately 32,000 trees trimmed this year with city forces. That's the most we've done since the budget crisis. That's the most we've done with city forces in 10 years. And when we're passing through a neighborhood trimming the trees, we're removing the dead trees that are there. We're removing the stumps that are there. The contractors didn't do that. And then when it's the right planting season, we're planting new trees in those places. And this is the first year we've had city crews at Streets LA planting trees, other than for grant-funded projects, in 10 years also. So we're planting, watering. In addition, we've made some policy and procedural changes with Adele's leadership to preserve healthy, mature trees in place and look for those opportunities. We developed a new process working with the Board of Public Works so that when a large development applies to remove a bunch of street trees, we send them a letter and we ask them what design alternatives have been explored to preserve the identified mature, healthy trees that we saw on their application that they wanted to remove. And I'm pleased to say we had one of our biggest successes just in the last month. There's one of those full block large housing projects on Temple Street, and originally the applicant wanted to remove every tree around the perimeter. That was 35 trees. And with this documented process where we sent them that letter, we engaged them in a dialogue, we managed to save 17 of those 35 trees. So that's really a testament to the new spirit and leadership that we have in the department. Also, I'm just pleased to let you know that we have hired Davey Treekeeper as our contractor to do the street tree inventory. They've received a notice to proceed. They're completing the advanced information technology work to get the system ready, and later this month they will start the field inventory of our 700,000 street trees. So I'm very pleased to share all that with you, and we really think we're poised for the biggest and best 2020 for the street tree population that we'll have seen in a long, long time.
It's great news, and it feels like we're finally moving in a really positive direction. And I mean, we've been moving in that direction, but we're taking a giant leap. So that's great. Thank you. Next, we're going to take up items 2 and 3 together. Continue. I mean, we're on the tree topic. Urban canopy is the key facet for our healthy city. The majority of our urban canopy living on private property, we need to ensure the protected tree ordinance is enforceable and is saving trees. Mr. Espinosa, would you read items 2 and 3 into the record, and then I'm going to call Mr. Carretza.
Item number 2 is a motion from Council Members Koretz, Bonin, and Blumenfield relative to strengthening the protected tree ordinance. And item number 3 is a motion from Council Members Rue, Blumenfield, Krikorian, et al. Relative to ongoing tree and biodiversity planning strategies and efforts to protect and grow the city's urban canopy. This has also been referred to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee.
Great, thank you. So if we could start, Mr. Koretz, if you would get us started as our special guest today. He's the maker of item 2, and he's a seconder on item 3, and he is a champion for the trees for many years. So, Mr. Koretz, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this item today and for your patience with it. I'm very pleased at the strides that we've made as a city since you and Councilmember Bonin and I first introduced this motion 2 years ago. We now have a first step report led by City Plants as a guidepost to move us forward towards the completion of a formal citywide urban forest management plan. You and I and our colleagues on the Budget Committee worked with the mayor to create the position, fund, and hire our first city forest officer, and substantially increased funding in our annual budget for many tree-related matters. We have a biodiversity assessment report completed and dedicated staff ecologists leading that effort in sanitation. We have a wildlife connectivity pilot project underway with the planning department, and as of just a few weeks ago, we hired a staff ecologist in planning to oversee that effort. We also now have Measure W funding in place to build green infrastructure for stormwater capture and cleaning projects, a vision in which trees are vital. These are all tremendous steps in a city that used to be known for its air pollution and its freeways. We wanted to wait until all those pieces were in place before hearing this motion today and getting these staff members to all work together in strengthening the protected tree ordinance. As we do so, it's essential that we take a holistic view of trees front and center and the critical ecosystem services they provide, interconnecting through all these efforts as wildlife habitat, as green infrastructure, for carbon sequestration, for water retention, for shade canopy in an ever overheating environment, and improving the well-being and livability of neighborhoods, among many others. The problems we have with the current version of the protected tree ordinance are detailed in the motion, but simply protected trees and heritage trees and mature trees are too easily removed. And that's true under the current process. The public process for tree removals is also not always clear to the public, and people feel it is inconsistent. City enforcement is not currently in line with the underlying principles and intent of the ordinance, nor with the city's climate and resilience goals. That needs to change, and there are excellent best practices around, particularly in cities that surround us like Pasadena and Calabasas. I also want to make sure we're tracking the excellent work on tree disease mitigation going on at UC Riverside, so we don't allow the removal of diseased trees that can be treated back to health, which I believe goes on currently. As our city forest officer gets to work on this and gets together the stakeholder group, I'd like to ask her to please take a look at the fairly significant number of letters of support from neighborhood councils and others in the council file. Many of them have asked to be included in the stakeholder group, including the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, Tree People, Friends of Griffith Park, the Center for Biological Diversity, Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife, and the Sierra Club. Also in the council file is a detailed list of suggested improvements from our friends at the Community Forest Advisory Committee, which I don't want us to miss also. And lastly, I would ask that we please include in the report whether we need and whether we legally can implement an emergency ICO, because there are a number of developers that we know are hoping to clear cut their properties very quickly before this all goes into effect and all our efforts are completed. So having asked all of that, I thank you for indulging me, and I think these issues are vitally important, and I appreciate you moving these forward. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Kretz, and I think you'll find that this committee shares your concerns, so thank you so much. Now we have a couple of 4 different public comment cards. I'm going to bring up, start with Robin Greenberg, followed by Mindy Mann.
My name is Robin Greenberg. I'm president of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council.
Do you say you filed the CIS on this?
That's correct.
Okay, so she gets an additional minute? 'Cause 2 altogether. If you filed the CIS, you get an additional minute. So go ahead.
I just wanted to thank council people, council members, Paul Koretz, Bob Blumenfeld, Mike Bonin, and our David Rue for everything that they do for us and for supporting us in everything we do. We live among the trees. We've chosen to live among the trees. We represent the stakeholders of Laurel Canyon, Coldwater Canyon, Benedict Canyon, Beverly Glen, Roscommere Road, Bel Air, Cassiano. Our excitement at our neighborhood council is trees. And that's why we wrote a CIS to support the motion under discussion today. And we are also members of RAC, West Side Regional Alliance of Councils, and they also voted to support this motion. Because in our opinion, there's nothing more beautiful than a tree. And our neighborhood council does not get excited about anything except trees, and the ridgelines, and the wildlife, and the tranquility and the protection. And we just finished a town hall at the Skirball Museum on the Getty Fire. We just previously had a town hall at the Franklin Canyon on the Skirball Fire. And we do want to get the stakeholders involved in properly planting trees for our future of fires. We do believe that the trees can make a difference in the protection of our homeowners. And we also would like to be considered to be on any committees that are created as a result of this motion. And we thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Mindy Mann, followed by Jerry Hans.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. And as heard, I'm Mindy Mann. I'm on the executive board of the Benedict Canyon Association, and I'm also the chair of the environmental committee on the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. I've no doubt that all of you appreciate the beauty of trees and that you all understand the critical role they play in our environment. So I am going to be brief in my comments. The question today is, how can we move forward in a better way to protect our tree canopy? There's been much talk of being resilient and growing our tree canopy. I believe that first we need to maintain and preserve the trees that we already have, and unfortunately I don't think that we're doing as good of a job as we can do. Everyone in this room values trees, but for many developers, the bottom line comes first. For them, square footage is king, and trees simply take up valuable space. Well, that's it?
Finish your thought.
Okay. In just the last few months in my immediate neighborhood alone, I've seen almost a dozen houses torn down, and the entire lot has been scraped. And where there was once a lot fronted with mature trees, there now sits an empty, flat lot with nothing but dirt and construction debris. In almost every case, all the trees were cleared as soon as the property was sold, before the construction even began.
Okay, thank you. I can't let you do a full minute. I can let you finish the
So
thought.
I'm just going to say that you have an opportunity today to do the right thing, so please approve the motions before you. And I think that if everybody works together, we can come up with a great solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next, we have Jerry Hans, followed by Shelley Billick. Mr. Hans.
Good morning. I'm Jerry Hans, Vice President of Science and Conservation for Friends of Griffith Park. Obviously, Friends of Griffith Park supports all measures that will protect native vegetation and its wildlife. Wilderness doesn't end at the borders of any park. There's a soft edge, and then there's continuity well into the most urban areas of the city. Cheaters was a word that was used this morning in the impeachment hearings. I'm going to adopt that today. There's a lot of cheaters out there. Some violate the existing 2006 ordinance by removing listed protected trees in the dark of night. Others are more blatant and still get away with it easily. Another type of cheater, though, are those who know new ordinance are in the works to expand listed species or to increase enforcement or mitigation measures. They're the worst cheaters of all, in my opinion. They unashamedly remove valuable species to preempt law that's soon to be enacted. This is happening all over the city, council members. My last sentence. Whether we're talking about wildlife pilot study, the ordinance to add elderberries and toyon to the protected list, or the ordinance to expand protections to more comprehensive measures, it is imperative that moratoriums and ICOs be put in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Ms. Shelley Billick. Now, Ms. Billick, you signed up for item 2 and item 3. Since we're taking them together, you can have a minute on each item, so that'll be a total of 2 minutes.
I also our NC filed a CIS on item 3.
Okay, so
But
then you can
I'll try to keep it brief regardless.
We'll give you a total of 3 minutes. You don't need to use them all.
I probably don't.
Okay.
Thank you, and again, thank you for the leadership of many of the council members here, Councilman Koretz, and especially for refunding all of the initiatives to protect our urban forest. And I too will not go into the benefits that we all know, but I will say that we are in a state of climate crisis that won't be solved with solar panels and electric vehicles alone. If we don't look at the natural infrastructure that is living among us, these are living things that provide us the clean air that we breathe, literally, we are not going to get to the goals that we need to get to in a quick way. For item 2, I just wanted to also echo somebody else's comment to include the NCSA Trees Committee. I forgot to tell you who I am, I'm sorry. I'm a board member of the NCSA, the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and I'm also on the board of the Encino Neighborhood Council, chair of the Parks and Environment Committee, and I'm a CFAC rep to CD5. So I agree that involving the community is key. Most of the trees that we know about are on private property, and the only way to involve the public is through neighborhood council. I won't say the only. One of the key ways is to involve neighborhood councils. So we would like to have some representation on that group. We now have 56 of the 99 neighborhood councils as members, and most of them are very passionate about the urban forest. I also am concerned about the replacement trees. I see a lot of replacement trees that are not yet being irrigated properly. Some of this is before the new funding, and I know that things, the ship is moving, but I want to just remind you that we need maintenance and irrigation, and we've selected this period of 3 years, but that's often not enough for many species. I know of several hundred Italian cypress along Sepulveda that are sitting there dying in poor soil and no irrigation, and nothing is happening. Also, CAL FIRE and fire department contractors are removing protected trees. Black walnuts, for example, which is one of the protected species, goes dormant, and we hear of their removal because it looks, quote unquote, dead. Those trees are not dead. They should not be removed, and they're being removed without permits as well. To item 3, I just wanted to add again and echo sentiments that the protected tree ordinance can't be used to bypass CEQA. We have land in the hillsides especially that are natural communities, they're ecosystems. We can't miss the forest for the trees, so to speak. There's wildlife. These are systems that are interactive, and we're seeing developers just raise them to the ground. You can't treat those the same as a house, in the mid-city and call it categorically exempt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to bring up Tim Tyson and Rachel Malrick to the podium. While you're doing it, I'll just say, again, I'm thrilled about the progress that we've made with Streets LA toward enhancing our urban canopy in the last couple of years, reprioritizing trees, really important. We've got so much work ahead of us. Looking forward to the recommendations ultimately. So we've got some questions, or the floor is yours if either of you want to make some initial comments about items 2 and 3. Okay. So it's crucial that the protected tree ordinance be enforced effectively and efficiently. Is Streets LA working with planning and building and safety to become involved early on in the projects to prevent these delays?
I've sat down with building and safety and city planning at a meeting, and we talked about this motion, and their response was they wanted to be sure that the city council was in favor of them expending resources in order to go through all of this.
Okay, and then secondly, we've talked about a lot of elements that are requested in terms of report backs. Will all those report backs be in the urban forestry management plan, a lot of the elements that have been requested in these different report backs?
Actually, yes, a lot of these things are part of the urban forestry management plan overall. If you want to protect trees that are 8 inches or greater on private property, then that has to be something that has to be decided, throughout all the city council, and that would be something that would be part of the urban forestry management plan because 90% of the tree canopy cover is on private property.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very excited that this is coming forward. This is a long time coming. Earlier, I didn't get to say thank you, Rachel. I'm very excited you're here. We've been fighting long and hard for your position to be created as well. I wasn't here from the 90s, but as soon as I got here, we all fought for it. And I really want to thank our chair, Councilmember Blumenfield, for not only seconding Councilman Koretz's motion, who I agree with everything that he said, but also seconding my motion, which was pretty much a augmentation or an add-on to Councilmember Paul Koretz's motion that he made back in 2017. This is something that we need. I think you outlined what you're trying to do and creating a whole tree inventory to begin with so we could have a more robust policy. I'm just excited about everything you said. I'm just so excited about this finally moving forward. And there's a lot that needs to be done. I agree. Let's get that inventory first assessment done so that we could see how we could. I'm all for increasing replacement fees, increasing requirements, more robust augmentation of any kind, having more equitable distribution throughout the city. I'm very lucky to have more of the trees in my district, in a lot of my various communities. But at the same time, even my communities that have those trees would argue that it's not enough. So this is very important for our environment, for our city, for our urban forestry. This is not just good for shade for the present Angelinos, but it's also for future Angelinos and helping not just the city of LA, but the world. So thank you so very much, and I'm very much looking forward to this report going forward and the comprehensive reports that you guys have already been working on. And thank you, Tim, for all of your hard work, where we're seeing drastic improvements in the urban forestry department, which has had severe cuts in the past, and I want to recognize that. And you're finally getting some of the resources that you've needed, and we will do everything that we can to continue to augment.
We do want to thank the committee as well as all the council members, as if you want to have a robust and better urban forest, we have to put more resources in. The protected tree ordinance was established in 2006. Prior to that, it was only if it was an acre or more. And I went back and looked at 2005, and we had 7 reports. So since then, we run well over 100 reports a year. So the whole ordinance needs to be looked at current standards. And so it needs to be revamped completely, all the way down to protecting the trees that are there while the construction and development phase happens, to a more permanent type fencing around the trees and so on.
I'll add, definitely the components listed in these ordinances, these motions would be part of the urban forestry management plan. They're just going to be probably put towards the top of the pile now of what elements we're looking at, because we're going to be doing a review of a lot of different city policies and procedures. These will just be put, again, at the front of the line. I'll add that one of the things I've been doing is trying to make sure I understand how the different departments interact with the current protected tree ordinance and the ways in which they are experiencing challenging in enforcing it. I've noticed that it seems like even when the protected tree ordinance, the trees are reported, it comes to board, all of those things, that not very many people are happy at the end of the day, either the community advocates or the developers. So a hope would be through this process that we find something that is functioning well, allowing people that are moving forward with development to move forward without delays, while also protecting trees that the council and others have deemed worth protecting, as they are huge assets to our communities.
Thank you. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you so much for your great work on this, and I look forward to seeing the inventory and the report as well. Question, something really sticks out of my mind. I've always known that the overwhelming majority of the urban tree canopy is on private property. You said 93%. 90% of the urban forest is on private property. And outreach, knowledge, sharing, communication is a big challenge. We know that some communities are very well organized and the information is distributed fairly robustly. In other communities not. We know that some property owners just really have no idea and no connection to what the rules are or what the benefits are of having an old growth tree in their yard. We know that some developers are unscrupulous and just clear cut and cheat and get away with what they can. Some don't and aren't informed of all of the rules and regulations for whatever reason. So where I'm going with this is, do we have a way, everyone receives Department of Water and Power, a DWP bill, electronically or through the snail mail. Is there an opportunity to make sure that 90,000 property owners receive information about the value and the value of trees, and then the ordinances that are in place or will be in place? Is there a relationship that we could have with existing processes that are happening that we could simply partner with to help spread the word even further?
Definitely. So obviously communication and education is critical and also very challenging with a city of this size.
Yes.
I have already been in conversations, the city plants contract with the Department of Water and Power for their program. They're working on, in conjunction with sanitation and the environment, as well as the mayor's office in their effort to do a communications campaign around the Green New Deal goals. I know that they have some resources set aside for education and outreach for part of the, I believe it should be launching in the spring, as well as we're looking at some pilot studies to do some more hyper-local engagement with and testing out some strategies for engaging with folks who may not have the same kind of connectivity that we experience. It's definitely something that we're going to have to prioritize. I'll also add that one of the really exciting things that has occurred thus far is I've already been in communications with LA County in terms of discussion, as they also are moving forward with development of an urban forest management plan. That's one of their goals, of seeing how we can collaborate with our resources and our avenues for communication to share messaging, share those resources over the next several years, potentially, when communicating about the urban forest, that we would have a joint push of sorts.
And I would suggest, if you're going to go down the road of Green New Deal, that you parse it out every month, a different distinct element of the Green New Deal. One month, it's only about trees and nothing else, so it doesn't become, when people hear the Green New Deal, it's fairly complex and abstract unless you dive in. So I think it's all in the communication, and so it sounds like there are some real possibilities there.
Yeah, and the group, that collaborative of the City Plants Group and their nonprofit partners, those groups are also talking about how do we leverage other campaigns that are also ongoing that they may be involved with, or other communications that the city already has. But again, how do we utilize those avenues that are already happening while not muddling the message? So definitely agree.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, colleagues, then, unless there's additional questions or comments, I'm going to recommend that, unless there's objection, we approve the motion for item 2. Seeing no objection, that'll be the order. And similarly, I'm going to recommend we approve item 3. Seeing no objection, that will be the order. Thank you very much. I want to quickly knock out some of the items that were consent related. So 16, without objection, will continue 16, item 16. Item 7 is going to be consent, but there is an amendment. Mr. Espinosa, if you would read the amendment into item 7.
And I believe the CAO has a more detailed information that they would like to
Okay,
share.
CAO could read that, and thank you.
Hi, Nicole Trujillo with the Office of the CAO. We would like to amend recommendation to read that the council, subject to the approval of the mayor, add and delete resolution position authority for the Bureau of Street Services for the period December 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020, subject to the pay grade determination by the Office of the City Administrative Officer, Employee Relations Division. As another amendment we would like to propose are to change the number of street services worker 2s to be deleted from 4 to 3. We found an error in the 2019-2020 PAR C in that one street services worker 2 was inadvertently omitted from the position authority, leaving the total number of street services worker 2s as 3. There is no overall change to the number of positions that will be deleted from the program.
Without objection, that'll be the order, as stated by the CAO. Item 10, going to move that we adopt recommendations 1, 2, 6, and 7 in the mayor's report dated November 8, 2019. Without objection, that will be the order. And then item 13, I think, Mr. O'Farrell, you had an amendment to that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So on item 13, the amendment is to include 2 additional tunnels, Fletcher Drive between Avenue 35 and Astara, and Hollywood at New Hampshire. Since they're in close proximity to schools, there's an urgent need to expedite the closures of these tunnels to address the public health and safety issues occurring at each of these sites. And this is a friendly amendment accepted by all parties.
Great. So without objection, then, we will approve the motion as amended by Mr. O'Farrell. Seeing no objection, that is the order. That brings us back, then, to item number 5. Mr. Espinosa, would you please read that into the record? And I'd like to invite Bianca Swan to come up while you're doing so.
Item number 5 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the Innovation and Performance Commission funding for the project sanitary stations from the Los Angeles Police Department.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm Bianca Swan, Project Coordinator for the Innovation and Performance Commission. The Innovation and Performance Commission recommends $40,000 for the Los Angeles Police Department project sanitary stations. Through this pilot, 5 UV shoe sanitizers will be placed in 5 main entry points at Central Division in an effort to combat the spreading of pathogens entering police facilities. I have a representative from the Los Angeles Police Protective League who submitted the idea on behalf of the Los Angeles Police Department, who will provide more details on the item.
Mr. Harris, welcome. And as you're coming up, appreciate you bringing this forward. I know you talked with my team early on about this, and as a great way to save money on officers being out sick and to be able to improve the health through some technology. So the floor is
Yeah, well, first, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present this to you. So when the news broke about some of our officers contracting some infectious diseases, the Los Angeles Police Protective League joined forces with facility management, general services, the mayor's office, the department, and as we started looking at ways that we could begin to address the environmental concerns and make our stations safer, we started doing some research on what that might look like, what innovative ideas are out there, and at first the Protective League found shoe sanitizers because in our research we found that the soles of your shoes are the primary method by which pathogens are brought into office space or a station. The pathogens atomize, they get up in the air, and then they eventually land back down on the hard surfaces. This is where officers can become contaminated. So our first idea was one that involved some chemicals to sanitize your shoes. There was some concerns about that with the chemicals, and Medical Services Division didn't like it. So we dug a little bit deeper. We came across a machine that is pretty well known in the medical and pharmaceutical industry, but not on the public safety side, and it's a UV shoe sanitizing machine. The one that we eventually purchased and deployed at Central Station is the only one on the market that had independent clinical trials attached to it. And so we brought the VP of Sales out. He actually did a demonstration for Chief Moore. It's very easy to use. You simply stand on the machine, the shield's open, the UV light is exposed to the soles of your shoes for 8 seconds. You step off the machine into the sterile environment, you don't step back into the contaminated. And that's all there is to it. And so what we pitched was, in order for us to maximize the effectiveness of this at Central Station, was we really need enough machines to cover virtually all of the entry and exit points. It doesn't really do any good to just have the one. And so when we presented to the Innovation Committee and got the approval from them, one of the things that they asked was that we develop a strategy of measuring success of the machine. And so I worked with Healthy Soul, and I think we've come up with an action plan that will give us 3 steps to determine actually how beneficial it is with these machines. We can run those sampling tests pre-deployment and then post-deployment. So that's pretty much where we stand.
Great, thank you, and I appreciate the committee raising the issue of the metrics, something that we always raise here about. We want to do these innovative projects, but we want to make sure that we can measure success, and it sounds like you're well on the way to doing that. You're going to measure the before and after, the health effects, number of officers that are out, and those kinds of things. So that's wonderful. Are there other police departments using this technology, or are we going to be the first?
So when I spoke with Chris Griffin, who's the VP of Sales, when we reached out to him, no other public safety entity had used these machines. And then the league, Jaretta Sandos, our vice president, they did a press conference at Central with the mayor's representative. And from that point forward, he actually has had a number of public safety agencies reach out to him. I believe Harbor or the Port Police purchased one. He said that LA City Fire purchased a couple. I don't know if he meant LA City or maybe LA County. And then there's some fire agencies up north because they're finding that it can sterilize the boots of the firefighters when they come in from fires. So yeah, it's expanding.
Interesting. And the maintenance of the sanitizers, is that built into this? How is that going to work?
So one of my first concerns was, how are we going to do this, and then are we going to have to train somebody to do this? So it is virtually idiot-proof. So you plug the machine in, it stays on all the time. The shields cover the UV light. The bulbs have to be replaced every 12 months. The one that the league bought, I actually got the next set of bulbs, and the only maintenance that's required for it is make sure that your shoes or your boots aren't wet and there isn't large debris on it. So we've actually purchased one of the big industrial boot brushes that's attached next or planted next to the machine. And then you just need to wipe it off and keep dust out of the inside of it. And then I got some extra dust shields. But it's the scale itself is made by an industrial company that makes scales all the way up to the ones that they use to weigh semi-trucks. And so it's pretty durable. There's no reason to touch the podium or the LCD screen that does the countdown from 8 seconds to 0 seconds. So it's really, the maintenance is really easy.
That's great. Well, this is exciting. Colleagues, any comments or questions?
Do you want it? Well, that was the other thing. It was relatively inexpensive for what it does and what else is on the market. It's really relatively inexpensive. It was $5,000 for one machine, and that was almost as much as the one that had chemicals. But you had to consistently purchase the chemicals. The upkeep of the machine itself was laborious. Like you had to clean it, dump it. So it's.
And this grant includes the purchase of the 5 of them. And the 15 for all of the metrics and usage.
I would support a pilot project for all of the members of the Public Works Committee.
Any other?
If I can, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for coming to us and coming to the committee chairman for this recommendation. This is good that we're having this, but we shouldn't have to have this technology. Only, if we would keep our, and I believe this is in response to the typhus outbreak in Skid Row area, correct?
Yeah, it was the that was the tipping point.
So this is where I'm at. That's the tipping point. If we were to keep our sidewalks clear and free of trash, debris, and even the encampments and the bulky items and the feces and urine, we wouldn't have to have this type of technology. And going back to the Mitchell settlement, I could continue to go back to this Mitchell settlement that I was opposed of. I was opposed to, where we would, allow unlimited amount of property now in the Skid Row area, in the high impacted area in and around the police station. I did my probation at Central Division. It wasn't this bad in 96, 97. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry that our officers have to go through this. I'm sorry that we have to have this type of damn technology to ensure that our officers are safe and are free of infectious diseases. We shouldn't have to. If we keep our sidewalk clear and free and clean, then we wouldn't have to have this type of technology. But it's needed. So sorry, I just had a vent.
Fair enough. It's needed, but you'll support them getting it. Okay. So they're seeing that, the appropriate reservations and comments, but it looks like we will have moved this forward without any objection to approve the recommendation in the CAO's report that's dated November 27, 2019. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you. I appreciate it.
Okay, that takes us to item 6, I believe. No, yes. Oh, no, on item 6, before we do item 6, we have one, I don't believe he's here, but one public comment. Is Red Chief here? Red Chief has put public comment in. He is not here. Swan, welcome.
Would you like me to read that into the record?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Item number 6 is a report from the Innovation and Performance Commission relative to the 2018-19 annual report.
Good afternoon again. I'm Bianca Swan, Project Coordinator for the Innovation and Performance Commission. We are going to provide a brief overview of our 2018-19 annual report. I have our Commission President here, John Merritt, who's going to provide some remarks, and both of us are available for questions.
John Merritt, President of the LA City Innovation and Performance Commission. Thank you, Chairman Blumenfield, for having us today. Thank you, committee members. It's our pleasure to present our annual report for 2018-2019. In the current cycle that we have, which is shown on pages 6, 7, and 8 of the report, you can see the variety and scope of our funded projects. Focusing on the Commission's mandate to look at projects that save money, improve efficiency, and provide new and improved services to the citizens of Los Angeles. Further, the report illustrates the broad participation for most of the city departments. We've received, as of the date of publication, almost 600 submissions for innovation funding. And this has resulted over the course of the Innovation Fund in 39 projects being funded since late 2014 when the fund was launched. I can take questions on the report or give you some highlights from it.
Why don't you give us some highlights and then we'll give you some questions.
So in the report, we document a number of projects. We have a handful that are approved in this cycle but haven't been fully funded by this committee or the council yet. But I want to focus on one that we did fund. So Department of Transportation and Street Services are cooperating on a initiative called the Clean Streets Parking Information System. What that will do, it's a very simple idea actually. When you have a 2-hour window for street cleaning and the street cleaner has gone by in the first 15 minutes, parking is still prohibited for the remainder of that time. And they're developing a pilot project which will track the actual machine, and then once it passes a location, it will transmit an all clear through LA 311 and also through some kind of subscription opt-in text messaging system. So right now they're developing where they're going to do it, and we expect a report back from them on the progress early in 2020. One of the things that we strive for is public transparency, and we funded a project called the City Clerk Technology for Neighborhood Councils project. This allows both neighborhood council members and members of the public to see what is being funded through the neighborhood councils. It's a web-based portal, and it improves greatly the transparency of what goes on in neighborhood councils. One that I'm really excited about. So LAPD came to us and they talked to us about their issues with recruitment and how they compete with the smaller cities in the county and they compete with the county sheriffs. And they wanted to develop a virtual reality recruitment tool where a potential recruit could put on virtual reality glasses and immerse themselves in actual police activity, community policing, bomb squad deployment, things that would bring the reality of being a police officer to someone who may not know the ins and outs, and to compete more effectively with our competitors for these recruitments. So we funded that, and that is already in service. So that's just a kind of a smattering of the projects that we have approved and funded, and that you folks have also approved and funded in the past few years.
Great. So has the reduced size of the IPC been conducive to enhancing the submission review?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
We reduced the size of the IPC.
Oh, yes.
And has that been conducive to doing the reviews and approvals of the projects? How has that been working?
Oh, definitely. For those who may not know, the commission originally had a 15-member component, and unfortunately, because we're all volunteers, we had a lot of quorum issues and a lot of situations where we couldn't move forward because we didn't have enough people. So we proposed, and the council approved, a reduction from 15 to 9, and I can happily report that that has greatly improved our efficiency because we're not relying on, we don't need 8 for a quorum, now we just need 5.
Great. What have been the biggest challenges that IPC has experienced over the past year?
I think our biggest challenge is something that Councilmember Blumenfield have discussed with us, and that is discerning the difference between something that should be in the regular budget process versus a genuine innovative idea that can't necessarily be funded that way or should be piloted independently of that. we try really hard to evaluate the proposals with that as a chief decision-making criteria.
Yeah, and that's always tricky, I imagine.
It's very tricky, but I have to say, on behalf of my 8 fellow commissioners, we give it a great deal of thought and discussion to try and avoid what people call budget end runs.
And you mentioned the one project that's launched. I know that the implementation stages are various. Have any of the other projects from this year actually officially launched yet?
Yes, so let's see. So the LA Fire Department Early Intervention Treatment Program is in process. They have developed the program and they've put out an RFP for the athletic trainer who would be coordinating that program. The Office of the City Clerk Legislative Management System, that's a project to integrate 5 completely incompatible software systems into one. They've got the vendor involved and they are working on launching that shortly. And then there's the one for ITA, Innovation Technology Agency, and that is in cooperation with the Department of Neighborhood Councils, is a platform for a city idea hub. And that would be a way for neighborhood councils and eventually citizenry to crowdsource ideas. And that is in process also. In fact, we're planning to launch the pilot of that through our own commission, and that, is that, Bianca? Is that pilot launch of the Idea Hub for us, is that soon? January, so imminently.
Great. Colleagues, any comments, questions? Great, well, we thank you very much. Appreciate the report and keeping us updated on not just the projects that are coming up, but how things have been going in the past. It's really important to keep track and keep the metrics going. So.
Absolutely, and thank you all for your support.
Great, thank you. Mr. Espinosa, is there anything else on our agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.